They say some of the best things come in small packages, and today we're going really close and personal with some small but gorgeous little coins. We have already discussed the massive tetradrachma. We've also talked about the drachma, but these are quite hefty sums of money. Today, we're down to earth, looking at a small silver coin the ancient Greeks used on their everyday transactions. And fortunately, they are just as fascinating as the previous two. Let's meet the obol. When we discussed the history of the drachma, we've seen that the word came from the verb drasomai, or I grasp. But what exactly was being grasped? They were grasping obolos, or obols, initially a metal rod used as a form of rudimentary bullion money. But as the use of silver became widespread, the cumbersome metal rods fell into disuse and the silver drachma became the standard coin. And as an alternative to the 4.3 grams that was the drachma, you could have 6 0.7 gram little coins, the obols, which were much more efficient to be used on everyday transactions for goods and services. So a really curious sample of what an obol could buy you is connected to the old myth of Charon's obol. It was said on old Greek mythology that an obol was to be placed at the mouth of the deceased, so they would immediately find it upon waking up on the afterlife. This coin would then be used to pay for the boatman, Charon, to cross his or her spirit through the river Styx, so they could enter the afterlife. Not having a coin to pay the boatman would mean you would have to wait 100 years before being allowed passage. This amazing story shows the kind of services and goods an obol could pay. Simple transportation through the region, olive oil in the marketplace, a couple of days worth of grain, some fruits, a couple of wine at the local inn, simple tools. All of these everyday items could be purchased by one or a couple of obols. But what really surprises me is just how much stuff, how much information and elements they would add on a flan that was not wider than 12 millimeters in diameter, sometimes not even reaching the 1 centimeter mark. Yes, you need to get really close to one to fully appreciate the details on the coin, but they are there. So if you can stand the small size, collecting these fractional silver coins can be a great introduction to Greek coinage. They generally have minimal writing, if any, and show very typical designs of Greek mythology. So they are easy coins to understand and appreciate without previous knowledge. They also tend to be not as expensive as their heavier cousins. So how about we jump straight into some gorgeous examples and take a look. And we start with a very early coin. The city of Zancle, located at the crossing between mainland Italy and the island of Sicily, minted this coin between the year 525 and 490 BC. Being on such an important commercial hotspot, it was evident maritime symbols would make their way into the iconography. On this quite complicated obverse, we can see a dolphin inside of a circular-shaped harbor and the letters of the name of the city tightly squeezed next to the dolphin. The reverse still retains the typical ink sponge of archaic coinage, a simple pattern protrusion inside the coin that serves to prove the coin was made out of good metal all the way to its core. But it was just not about sea animals. This next example features two very unexpected creatures. The city of Eion in Macedon produced between the years 480 and 450 BC a multiple of the obol, named the diobol. The slightly larger coin allowed for a bit more detail to be squeezed in. On the obverse, we see a goose with his little head arching back, observing his little companion on the coin, a lizard, at the upper left part. The reverse, once again, is the typical ink sponge. From around the 450s onwards, the ink sponge would start being replaced with a secondary design on the reverse. probably because the occurrence of silver-plated fake coins from the time proved to die engravers that that ink sponge simply wasn't very effective on its job, which was to prevent counterfeits. So now let's go back to Magna Graecia, to Sicily, where we once again look at Syracuse, the so famous Syracuse of the tetradrachma and decadrachma of the great master die engravers. But this time, looking at a much more simple coin. They had a monetary standard of their own and their own set of denominations. So this particular obol-like coin is called a litra. On the obverse of this piece, struck between 466 and 460 BC, we see the symbol of the city, the muse Arethusa, in archaic style, and the letters C, Ra of Syracuse. But this coin truly shines when we look at its reverse. We see an anatomically correct octopus. One of the outstanding perks of Syracusan coinage is the attention to detail given to even the smallest denominations. It wouldn't be too complicated to make an octopus with its 8 legs, but it is going the extra mile when the die engravers had the finesse of adding like the little eyes and even the membranes between each tentacle. So let's stay in Italy and head over to the continent, to the city of Tarentum in Calabria, where the obols typically used two of the most common design types on Greek coinage of the time, Athena and Hercules. But that doesn't mean they're boring. Athena and Hercules tend to happen so often on such coins because of their innate meaning. Let's say, Athena was the protector of the cities and tended to bless those fighting defensive wars. So this first piece was struck between 380 and 325 BC. We see Athena with a marvelous crested helmet looking right on the obverse. On her helmet, we can see the hippocamp, a mythical creature, half horse, half fish, in another example of how incredibly complex these tiny little coin dice could get. The reverse is full of action and movement. We see Hercules struggling with the Nemean lion, but instead of the typical scene where he just hits the lion with his club, we can see him wrestling with the beast, trying to grab him by the neck. In fact, we can see his club just resting by his left. Looks like he simply wanted to go hand in hand with the beast. So this coin type must have been quite popular, because 100 years later, this coin with the same design was struck. This time, we see Athena looking left, with a less spectacular helmet. The reverse features Hercules and the lion once again, but this time Hercules is pouncing at the beast with his club raised. He would, according to legend, stun the lion and skim him alive, using his fur as a protection, which would make him invulnerable to all harm. What truly fascinates me about the obol is the fact that it mostly served as an artistic playground for die engravers. Important pieces like the drachma and the tetradrachma were supposed to travel far and wide, and the city council definitely had a say on the designs chosen. Therefore, they tend to have a much more official aspect on them, being propaganda posters and prestige pieces for each polis. The same situation, I would argue, cannot be said about the obol and other smaller fractional coins, because they just tended to circulate more locally, and as a result, we just see an explosion of designs on them. And even on the same design type, we see major varieties between them. It is a great type of coin for those collectors that don't care for the small size and just like to appreciate variety, diversity, and the sheer beauty of these coins. I have a couple of them, and I can't recommend them enough. There's just so much artistic prowess into such a tiny little flan. So how about you guys? Have you got an obol or any fractionals in your collection? Are there any particular kinds of designs you like on your coins? Let us know in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing ancient coinage to YouTube. I hope you all stay safe and see you all soon.